In addition to advocating for South America's independence in 2 political treaties, Cartagena Manifesto and Letter from Jamaica, Simón Bolívar personally led armies against the Spanish, liberating 3 South American territories. Long dash. Okay, we're going to get extra information that's probably going to tell us what those 3 territories are. 3 territories, New Granada, Venezuela, and Quito, from colonial rule. So this is interesting. Be careful here. These 3 territories are being separated from colonial rule. So the territories themselves are going to be inside long dashes, because the from colonial rule should be outside the long dash. It's not part of the parenthetical. Right away, I think D is going to be the answer. Let's take a quick look. New Granada, present-day Colombia, Panama, parentheses, then a comma, then the second item in the list, which has no parentheses because it's already, or still is and was, the same country, Venezuela. And then the third item in the list is Quito, which in parentheses again is present-day Ecuador, and it should be a parentheses, should not be a comma parentheses, should not be a parentheses comma, because we don't have another item on the list, and we wouldn't open with a colon and then close with a comma. Don't mix parentheticals. We're going to open with a colon with a list of 3. We're going to close that list with a colon. And this is a little tricky because that colon, I keep saying colon, long dash. That long dash, which separates the list, kind of breaks apart the sentence, South American territories, the list of 3 from colonial rule. If I pulled that out parenthetically, just pull it, we'd get the main sentence, right? We'd get the main sentence, which is liberating 3 South American territories from colonial rule. I need long dashes in between to show the list of 3. So D, again, that just kind of confirms D is the correct answer here. Okay, in 2016, Eastern Washington University psychologist found that blank among the study participants who experienced frisson, a physiological response akin to goosebumps or getting the chills, while listening to music. So here's our dependent clause in between, separated by commas. He found that there was one personality trait that they scored particularly high on, openness to experience. So it wouldn't be high with a period. On openness to experience, that's not an independent clause, so that's not right. Okay, wouldn't be a semicolon, because again, just like high on, period, openness to experience, not an independent clause after the semicolon. Score potentially or particularly high on openness. I wouldn't have, that they scored particularly. There was one personality trait that they scored particularly high on, openness to experience. This is an example of what comes before the colon. So if you just read it quickly, the section that they scored particularly high on openness to experience, that kind of sounds okay, see, but that's not right? You've got to read the entire sentence. Blah, 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 blah. There was one personality trait that they scored particularly high on. Then we're going to explain or give an example of what that trait is. Openness to experience. D is going to be the correct answer here. Don't get caught up with C. On July 23, 1854, a clipper ship carrying Flying Cloud entered San Francisco Bay. End having left, or period having left, or having left New York Harbor under the guidance of Captain so-and-so and his wife, Navigator Eleanor Creasy, a mere 89 days and hours earlier. Okay? The 84 clipper ship Flying entered San Francisco Bay, having left New York 5 hours earlier. The celebrated ship set a record that would stand for 135 years. Okay, so I would want a comma here, right? Comma, having left New York under the guidance of blah, 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 a mere 89 days, 8 hours earlier. I can pull this parenthetical from here to here, if that's the case, out. Okay? And the main sentence would be, he entered San Francisco Bay. The celebrated ship set a record that would stand for 135 years. That would kind of need something else, because that would be 2 independent clauses. So, I'm not sure that's right. So let's take a look at this again. July 23rd, a clipper ship called the Flying Cloud entered San Francisco Bay. And having left New York under the guidance of so-and-so a mere 89 days earlier, the celebrated ship, so comma, and it would be Bay, and having left New York, so Bay, that would be, let's check B, period, San Francisco Bay, period, comma, period, having left New York under the guidance of 89 days earlier, the celebrated, that could work, actually, that could work, right? That's an independent clause, a period, and then an independent clause, okay? Bay and having left, so this would be, the having is a participle clause up front. So that's dependent, right? This is independent, okay? And this main part after the comma is independent, okay? So if I just had an and between this independent and the complex sentence that follows, that would be a run-on. Okay, so that's not right. This looks right. C, Bay, comma, having. It kind of looked okay at first, and oftentimes we do have commas before participles, but that's not right here, because that is not a parenthetical from comma, having to comma here, right? It's not sitting in between one independent clause. This is an independent clause. This is a separate independent clause. So C is not right. That's not what's going on here. And I wouldn't just have Bay having left New York. There's definitely need for some kind of punctuation here. So left San Francisco, having left New York under the guidance of no, I would have a period, I believe. I believe it's going to be a period. The Bay, period, having left New York, blah, 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 earlier, comma, the independent clause, the main clause, the celebrated ship set a record that would stand for 135 years. Should be two different sentences. We wouldn't have no punctuation there. Interesting one. This is a hard one. A lot of the questions here on this section are now requiring you to really pick up where the break off in the sentence is, right? Exactly where do we separate the clauses? A little interesting. I think that's a little bit different than the earlier paper exams. 7. When external forces are applied to common glass made from silicates, comma, so dependent clause up front, energy builds up around minuscule defects in the material, and then resulting in fractions. Dependent clause there, independent clause in the middle. Okay. Recently, engineer such and such of some university in Finland used the chemical compound aluminum oxide. So, all right, the chemical compound, this is in a positive. The chemical compound and aluminum oxide are the same thing, okay? So here it would be the chemical compound, and then we name it. Aluminum oxide is the name. So the name comes after what we're saying. It's essential, therefore no commas. That's not right. It's probably going to be this one with no commas. It can't be this one, right? We're not going to separate it by commas, the appositive. Or it could be this one. So now the question is whether there's a comma at the end or not, B or D. So use the chemical compound aluminum oxide to make. I wouldn't have a comma before the infinitive to make. That's not right. D is going to be our right answer. In 2018, a team of researchers led by Caitlin Whalen combined every available measurement of ocean mixing rates from the past 2 decades. With this novel data set, dependent clause or phrase up front, the team was able to determine how current-driven mixing varies across blank, across regions, and what impact it has on the distribution of heat and nutrients in the ocean. Okay? So is this going to be a comma and combining 2 independent clauses like A suggests? It's going to be a colon, a semicolon, or just regions with no punctuation? Well, right away, I know the comma and the semicolon are basically the same thing, as they are both equivalent to a period. They combine independent clauses. So that's not what's going on here. What is going on? Within this novel data set, the team was able to determine how current-driven mixing varies across regions and what impacts it has on the distribution of heat. So I think this is just a compound what would they be? Nouns, how driven mixing varies, and what impact it has on the distribution. So what and how combined with the and. That's all this is. It's just, a conjunction with and I looks like maybe noun. So I believe D is going to be correct. We do not want the colon. The second part, we wouldn't have a colon and the second part is not an example or an elaboration on the previous part before what would be the colon. That's not right. D is the right answer.